Hello viewers, you're welcome to another tutorial. In this lesson, we will learn how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square method. But before we go into that, I want us to understand the difference between an equation and an expression. Okay, an equation is a mathematical statement that contains equality sign, while an expression is a mathematical statement that contains no equality sign. For instance, if I have x plus 4 and I have x plus 4 equal to 0. This is an expression because it contains no equality sign. Why this is an equation? Because it contains an equality sign. Okay? Now, the second thing I want us to learn is how to figure out a quadratic equation. For instance, I have x plus 4 equal to 0. I have x squared plus 2x plus 4 equal to 0. I have x cubed plus 3x equal to 0. Now, how do we figure out a quadratic equation? We look for the unknowns. We look for the power of the unknowns. The unknown here, or the indeterminate here, is x, and the highest power of x here is just 1. So this kind of equation, we call it a linear equation, where the highest power of the unknown variable is 1. Now, if you look at this place, the highest power of x here is 2. Here it is 1, and here it is 2. So the highest power of the unknown variable, or the indeterminate, is 2. That means that equation is called a quadratic equation because the highest power of the unknown variable is 2. And for here it is 3, we call it a cubic equation. And also one thing you need to know about it is when you solve a linear equation, you only have one root. And when you solve a quadratic equation, you have 2 roots. And when you solve a cubic equation, you have 3 roots, and it continues like that. So now we can now figure out what an equation, the differences between an equation and an expression, and also we know how to figure out a quadratic equation by the power of the indeterminate. So let us go over to the question we have on the board. Now, what we have on the board is very clear. It is very obvious that the equation we have on the board is a quadratic equation because the highest power of the unknown variable is 2. So therefore, we are expecting to get 2 roots from solving this quadratic equation by completing the square. So what you need to do, just understand the steps in completing the square. It's not too difficult to solve. And do not skip any part of this video so that you get the steps properly. Now, first thing I would like us to do is you look for the coefficient of x squared. Here is 2. So we really don't need any coefficient of x squared apart from 1. So because it is 2, we divide both sides by the coefficient of x squared, which is 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I'll divide both sides by 2. I'll divide it by 2. Of course, don't be afraid to divide 0 by 2 because 0 divided by 2 is still 0. So 2 divided by 2 will give me 1. So I have x squared. Here I have 7 over 2x, and I have 3 equal to 0. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, now we are going to continue because the coefficient of x squared now is simple, it's just 1. So the next step we do is we'll pick up the coefficient of x, which is 7 over 2. We'll pick up the coefficient of x, which is 7 over 2. We will divide it by 2 and we'll square it. So the coefficient of x here is 7 over 2. We will divide it by 2 and we will square it. But I really don't want to write it this way because I already have a fraction here. Then putting another division operation may look it somehow complex. So I'm going to write it as this. I'll pick the coefficient of x, which is 7 over 2. Because it's a fraction, I'll divide it by 2 like this. Then I will square it. Okay? Of course, 2 is the same as 2 over 1. So when I change the division sign to multiplication, I'll have these guys inverted. So I have 7 over 2 times 1 over 2 all squared. So 7 times 1 is 7, 2 times 2 is 4 all squared. So that's the second step we need to really know how to do, how to compute. You pick up the coefficient of x, which is this guy, you divide by 2 and you square it. So that's what to do. Then step 3 is you add this guy to both sides of the equation. Now this part before the equality sign is called the left hand side, and this part after the equality sign is called the right hand side. So I'm going to add this to both sides of the equation. But that is the natural thing we need to do. But I will not go through that process. I will do something different, but not entirely different. Just look up. I have x squared plus 7 over 2x. I'm going to add this guy. I have plus 7 over 4, sorry, 7 over 4 all squared. Then I'm going to subtract it, like say minus 7 over 4 all squared, then plus 3 equal to 0. What I've just done here is to tell you that this minus this is 0. We are back to the previous equation. Just like we really didn't do anything serious here, because this minus this will give us 0 and we are back to this equation. So that is just the idea of completing the square, okay? You're really not changing anything. The equation, you're not altering the equation. It still remains the same. So the next thing we do is, in this equation, we only need this 3 term in the left hand side, and we have to take these 2 terms to the other side of the equation. So we have x squared plus 7 over 2x plus 7 over 4 all squared. Then I'll take this term to this side, I'll take this term to the other side. So I'll have, when it goes over, it becomes plus. So I have 7 over 4, or maybe I would like to write it like this, 7 over 4 all squared minus 3 over 1. Just as if to say we are adding this to both sides of the equation. Now it's very clear that we are adding it to both sides of the equation. No problem. Yes, let's simplify. Now if you look at the left hand side of this equation, I'm going to show you a trick on how to resolve this expression in a compact form, okay? Just watch. So the trick is, if you look at the extreme terms here, they all have squared. The extreme term have squared. So I'm going to open a bracket like this, and I'm going to close the bracket with a square, okay? Now this term that has square will stay here. This term that have square will stay here, 7 over 4. Of course, you really want to put them in square so that you can bring out their terms outside like this without the square, because we already have the square outside. Then the sign here will be what will be here, plus. Now, if you expand this, you're going to end up with this expression. So that's the easiest way of writing this expression in its factor form or in its compact form. Then we are done with the left hand side. Let's go to the right hand side, which is this. 7 square is 49 and 4 square is 16 minus 3 over 1. Okay? Now I'll clean this part of the board. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do, we need to simplify the right hand side of the equation by taking the LCM of these two fractions. The LCM is 16. If 16 divides 16, we have 1. 1 times 49 is 49. Minus, if 1 divides 16, we have 16. 16 times 3 is 48. So we have 49 minus 48 is simply 1 upon 16. So we have here to be x plus 7 over 4 squared. Okay, when you solve maths, what do you do when you have a square equated to a 10 here? We square both sides, okay? So we have x plus 7 over 4. We need to remove this square root. When it comes over to this way, it becomes, we need to remove this square. When you take it over to this way, it becomes a square root. So we have plus or minus square root of 1 over 16. Okay, when this square comes up, becomes the square root like this. So, of course, we have x plus 7 over 4 equal to plus or minus. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 16 is 4. So we take this term to the other side of the equation. We have something like this. We have x is equal to, when this guy goes over, it becomes minus 7 over 4. Then plus or minus 1 over 4. Okay, like we take this guy to this part of the equation. Okay, that's what we have here now. So we have s is equal to, we need to separate the plus and minus, so I call this one xy is equal to minus 7 over 4. I'll take the plus sign now, 1 over 4. Okay, then x2, let's simplify x1. We have x1 is equal to, the LCM is still remaining 4, minus 7 plus 1, we have minus 7 plus 1. So we have x1 is equal to, minus 7 plus 1 is simply minus 6 over 4, and that will end up to become, x1 is simply 2, we divide 6 to be 3, 2 divides 4 to be 2, we have minus 3 over 2 as our first root. Then we'll take the minus sign now. Now for the minus sign, we'll have, let's do it here. Let's do the minus sign here. We have x2 we'll take the minus sign now. We have minus 7 over 4. We have minus 1 over 4. And when they have the same denominator, it's as if writing one single denominator with these guys on top. So minus 7 minus 1 will give you minus 8 over 4, and therefore x2 is simply minus 2. That is the root of the equation we just solved. That is the root of the equation we just solved. So thank you for watching. God bless.